to have those dominant performances.
I'm with you. That's one of 2 Monday night games I like Minnesota. Brooke, give me an upset this week.
We talked about the Superdome being a house of horrors for Tom Brady, but man, the Colts house of horrors is in Jacksonville, Florida, which is funny because I love it because there's a Whataburger and a Bojangles on the same street. But Michael Pittman Jr. did not practice yesterday. To me, that is a huge problem. And the Colts have not played well. They've lost the last 3 games in Jacksonville. I'm going Jags.
I mean, after a tie with the Texans, if they lose to Jacksonville, we're going to have to sound the alarms. I like it. Nico, give me an upset.
How about Bob Swirsky and the Chicago Bears are going to beat the Green Bay Packers, and they're going to do it in surprising fashion. I do believe. The Bears, listen, I'm going to go back to my regular voice. The Chicago Bears, yes, they beat the 49ers week 1 in a monsoon. But this is more about the Packers and what they're lacking. That's protecting the quarterback, that's running routes properly. They have a young receiving core. They're struggling across the board. So this has upset alert written all over it if the Green Bay Packers don't get back on track.
The pride of Joliet, Illinois, making that
Bears.
pick there. Let's see if anyone's with him. Does Brooke pick it with him? Let's see.
No.
Let's populate the picks. Brooke, anyone else taking the Bears? No. Okay, so you have no bias up here. But Graziano, this is your game Sunday night, right? You're going to be there for us covering for ESPN. The world is panicking, right, about the Packers and their performance week 1. What are they saying inside?
They seem okay. I talked to a couple people there yesterday, and it doesn't sound like the vibe is one of significant concern. One of the guys I talked to was Aaron Jones, the running back, and he said, look, it's up to all of us to help get the rookies, the young receivers on the same page. He said this happens to everyone that come in the league. He told me a story about how when he was a rookie, he jumped off sides twice in a row. They pulled him out of the game, and Rodgers came over to him, and he was a little worried. But Rodgers kind of put his arm around him and said, hey, you gotta watch that. That's how you get taken off the field. We can't be giving away yards. He said, so Rodgers is actually better than you think at teaching these guys and showing a little patience with them. I think they're going to be okay as they get on the same page together. I have bigger concerns about them protecting him with those linemen.
Well, that's the point. And we talked earlier, RC, about how the Buccaneers have questions and protection, and they have questions on the outside. Well, the Packers have exactly the same thing. They've got Aaron Rodgers took a beating against Minnesota last Sunday. Could he be? I can't even fathom the conversations, RC, that you, me, Rex, and Dan will have on Monday morning if the Bears do what Ninko was talking about Sunday night and pull off this upset.
Well, what the Green Bay Packers have to be smart about is the way that they approach playing football this week. That Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon have to be involved early in the run game. But the difficult part about that is when you're missing starting tackles, when you're missing top-tier talent, it's difficult to get the run game started to get you in to play action. Think about the way that game started last week. Watson with the double move on Patrick Peterson with an opportunity to catch a 75-yard touchdown, and he drops it. And it only got worse from there for the wide receiver core. If the Green Bay Packers don't figure out that it's about playing dominant defense, running the football, and then getting a pass game off of that, they are going to lose to the Bears. And the Bears are going to find themselves a team that people always understood going throughout the whole offseason did nothing to help their young quarterback, could be 2-0. Now, beating the San Francisco 49ers in the monsoon was one thing. If the Bears beat the Green Bay Packers, it's going to solely be on the Green Bay Packers and what they cannot do offensively. And nobody is going to want to deal with four-finger scotch Aaron Rodgers on Monday morning.
I tell you what, I see what you're doing here, Ninko. I can see it. Yeah. The Vikings have a tough game in Philadelphia. Graziano just pointed out they're an underdog. The Lions have lost a game. If they knock off the Packers, it'll be the Bears all alone atop the NFC North.
Super Bowl champs, Chicago Bears.
No, you mean this? Is this your heart talking or is this your head? The heart of your head telling us that the Bears are going to knock off Aaron and company.
So what I said earlier about the Green Bay Packers having issues, like you talked about previous receivers saying Aaron Rodgers put their arm around them, they don't want to take you off the field. They can't take the young receivers off the field. That's all they have. So there is nobody else. They are going to have to go out there and perform at a high level with Aaron Rodgers, a guy that's going into the Hall of Fame, breathing down their throats. Listen, you need to be here. The timing needs to be right. This is where I expect you to be because guess what? I don't have time back here. And you saw it week 1. He was getting ping-ponged around back there in the pocket, getting beat up. And he could drink all the tea he wants, it's not going to help him.
Rodgers has owned that division, and he will tell you about it. If they lose Sunday night, they'll be 0-2 in the division to start the season. Meanwhile, Tua and the Dolphins opened their season with a banged-up Justin Herbert, so they're down by 3. They've got to kick an onside kick, and look how close they come to getting it, Ninko.
Comes down to special teams. The onside kick, Kansas City recovers, and that's the game.
That ball is sitting there for just a moment, but by that much, the Chiefs recover. They hold on. They win. Mahomes does enough to get it done. Herbert, impressive, but not quite enough. Okay, Ryan Clark, I want to start. Before we get to the big picture, it feels to me like there's a big and a little picture story coming out of this game. We'll get to the big, the implications. But I want to start, RC. Let's teach a little here. For the 99.9% of the people watching this show who did not play in the National Football League, Everett clearly wants to come out of the game before that play. He's tapping his helmet. Yes. He wants to come out. They don't sub him out because they don't want to let the defense substitute. And then it certainly does not appear to be kind, as though he gives maximum effort on the play. Is that on the player, or is that on the coaches for not getting him out when he asks out?
You know, it's on the players, and obviously the coach does have to try to substitute for a guy who really can't get it going, or a guy who has done a lot on a drive and doesn't have anything left in the gas tank. But if you're out there, you're out there. No one's watching this film and saying, oh, it's okay that Gerald Everett was tired. You give up a 99-yard interception that turns into a pick six because you don't fight. Everybody's tired. 2 minutes is absolutely miserable. Imagine mixing like Peloton, Hot Works, and any other F145, whatever you want to be, CrossFit, all in one thing. Add the stress of being on an NFL field in a big-time arena in a primetime game. It's hard as hell to keep going, but you have to fight for your quarterback who's driven you down to that point. And I understand that Gerald Everett's had a great 2 weeks to start his Los Angeles Charger career, but this play is going to haunt him, and it should. You have to give all the effort you can possibly muster in that situation to at least break the football up and do what you're supposed to do. You would like the coaches to be able to get him out, but strategically it was smarter to keep him on the field, and that's on Gerald Everett to find a way to make a play.
Again, to make sure that everyone watching understands, if the Chargers don't substitute, then the Chiefs don't get to substitute. Right. If the Chargers take him off the field, then they have to pause and let Kansas City make their defensive adjustments there. So that's the thinking behind why it doesn't happen. Sometimes it's those little things that decide games that could have enormous ramifications as we go down the line. So Dan Graziano, let's talk about that. Does it appear through 2 weeks as though the reports of the demise of Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs were greatly exaggerated?
Yes. I think Bart Scott sat here and talked about them not making the playoffs. So I hope like some of that crazy doesn't rub off on me in this chair. But look, I mean, they still have Andy Reid. They still have Patrick Mahomes. And I mean, I go back to my training camp visit to the Chiefs and talking to Mahomes about how it's going to be different this year. And he said, it's going to be more on me to make sure I go through the right reads as opposed to just looking and seeing, oh, Tyreek Hill's got a matchup that he can win. I'll throw it to him. So you see what Mahomes is doing, and through two games, which they played in the span of 5 days, it works out that way. Now, I will say this. It looks to me like more is going to be asked of Mahomes than ever before by the Kansas City Chiefs because they don't have a number one receiver. They don't seem to have a number one running back. He's going to have to make sure all the pieces work together. Through 2 games, he's been up for it.
A lot of that seems to come back, and you made this point in our meeting this morning, to something he said before the season began, sort of apologizing to people who were expecting those kind of numbers.
Exactly. He apologized to those fantasy guys like, man, sorry if you have any of our guys because you're not going to know who we're going to. And to that point, Mahomes has completed multiple passes to 8 different receivers, tied for most in a game in the Mahomes era. That was last night. Mm-hmm. Through 2 games, 11 different Chiefs have caught a pass, 6 different have caught a touchdown. If I'm looking at that, and I'm a fantasy gal sometimes, I'm not starting anybody on that team because it's so spread out. But this is what Mahomes said that he was going to do. He does not have Tyreek Hill as a crutch to just throw it up. He still has Travis Kelce, but I think that this is making him play smarter, distribute the ball more evenly, and that makes them even more dangerous as an offense.
With Mahomes as the central piece of the conversation, Ninko, as we look at him